Yo, welcome to Man Up. It's your boy Robert Leo Jr. Always, I got some big guns with me. So I want my big guns to introduce themselves right now because you're listening to Man Up.
Hey, oh man, Frog got my tonsils there for a second. Let him go. Let him go. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Jason Perry. Glad to be with y'all this evening.
Good morning, rather good evening, whenever you're seeing this broadcast, because it's going to be some morning, afternoon, and some evenings for you guys. I'm Kelvin Easter. Glad to be here. Just welcome and tune in. It's going to be a great conversation tonight. I live here in the Chicagoland area and looking forward to some man conversation.
Yeah, make sure you like and share the video. You can catch the video on Collector Perspective on YouTube. If you go to YouTube, you can subscribe to the channel on Collective Perspective. You also can like it on Facebook, on Man Up page. You can like the page. Make sure you share it. We got a lot of important information we want to talk about today. One of the concept that we started with last week, if y'all want to recap a little bit, last month, I'm sorry. If y'all want to recap, feel free to recap. But we're going to talk about leadership. And we're going to talk about different aspects of today's man, today's leader, and what we should expect from today's man. And we also going to talk about what behaviors possibly could be toxic as a way a man understands his expressions for his family, his communities, and the impact that it would have. So we want to just jump right into it. I will at least let me state these of the few point of views. What does it mean to lead your homes? Does leading mean domination, absolute authority, or superiority? Is the idea of male leadership an archaic, out of date thinking? What would a healthy understanding of manhood be like or seem like to you? And how would it transform relationships, homes, and communities? You can chime in anytime you want to, and we'll make sure that we'll respond to any input that you have. So with that, let's recap.
All right. All right. You know, one of the things that we talked about last time that I processed it quite a bit after we got off the air last month. But as we talked about, this whole idea of male leadership, is it an archaic concept? Is it a concept that's out of date? Is it unhealthy? And I think that's a very important thing to talk about. And I think in some ways our practice has been unhealthy. I don't think the concept is archaic. The way it's been lived out has been unhealthy. And therefore, I think it's easy to reject the concept of I'm the man of the house. You know, that the way that has been lived out has been in a very domineering, unhealthy fashion. And I think that needs to be addressed. And so I think that was important. So one of the things that we talked about last time that is really important is this, and that there's a relationship on a human level, man to woman, person to person, on a human level, then our relationship with God and our relationship with creation. And so what should characterize each of those relationships? And so the relationship on a human level should be respect. That should be the dominant character of respect, of mutual respect, of mutual submission. But then from humans, from mankind to creation, the thing that should dominate that or should characterize that relationship is reign. It's dominion. It's having dominion over. And then the relationship should characterize our relationship with God is reverence. It is a submission. It is a respect of who he is and a submission to his authority. And what's significant about that is that we should not expect reverence on a human level. We shouldn't have anybody treating us, bowing down to us. It should not be reverence. Neither should we be seeking to reign over people. Where we can reign over things. I think Pastor I think PK, you said that before. Kelvin, yeah, we should reign over things. We should respect people. I think that's so important. Matter of fact, when you said that last week, that really, I mean, last time, that really just hit me. Because to be honest with you, as I think about it, I think I've been saying it wrong, to be honest with you. I think I've been using that word wrongly myself. So that was really helpful. That really helped clarify.
What? Like, what do you mean using the word in what way?
I think when the scripture says God gave dominion to Adam, right? The word dominion is to reign. He said it should reign over the beast of the field. But he did not apply that to his relationship with Eve. He was not supposed to have dominion over Eve. He was not supposed to reign over Eve. He was supposed to respect and mutual respect with Eve and revere God. Yep. You see, and so I don't revere nature, I revere God. I reign over nature, but yet even in that reigning, I do it in the way that is what is best for the creation. I don't do it in the way that's dominating and detrimental. And so I think does that make sense what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that really kind of recaps what we talked about last time.
Excellent. Just one question, Rob, did you post this on Facebook?
Yeah, I did.
Because I don't see it, and I'm trying to post it out because I know my people will want to hear.
Okay, let me.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. Okay.
You're looking at it?
Mm-hmm.
All right, then that has something to do with my phone. Then hold on, let me see it.
Okay.
So go ahead. You all pick up, keep on talking, and I'll see if I can find it. Oh, I found it under Jason, so I'll just share it under his group so that we don't waste a lot of time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, KP, you was about to start speaking, I think, in regards of reverence, respect.
Yeah, the issue there is very significant that JP just brought up, and I try to draw that line of clear distinction that mankind, again, is God designed us to serve one another, to dominate the earth, dominate the spirit realm, dominate things. And then he added that excellent angle of our reverence to God. So our worship goes to God. Now, you'll notice in life, we get these things mixed up. Many times we worship people. We put our heroes on a pedestal. And there's a reason for that. That has everything to do with the way God made us. He designed us to actually be great, but that greatness should not overstep his glory. So that greatness comes from him and it reflects who he is. So we have a craving to be great. We have a tendency to mix this up. We will worship human beings, rap artists, baseball players, boxers, just people all over. We can even be in the business world and say that I love this guy because they're, doing such great business work, and they become people that we worship. So worship is designated only for God. That kind of reverence should only be given to God. But then when it comes to human beings, people dominate females or dominate males. And that's where we find these two words, control and manipulation. Those two things are misplaced often. They are necessary. Yeah, there are places that you need to be in control when you deal with nature, when you're dealing with the spirit realm. Control, or I won't use the word manipulation for that, but influence is important. But we have the tendency to misplace these priorities. So we just talked about reverence, dominance, and there was one more.
Reverence God, respect each other, reign over creation.
Yeah, and reign over creation. And so that whole dominant factor is cultivating what God has given us on the earth to bring him glory. So we often we're misaligned in these areas. And what mankind's plight, or what I should say, what his quest should be, is to align properly so that he can function and reign where he should reign, and reign and dominate where he should dominate, reverence the God he should reverence, and respect and serve humanity.
Here's the thing, though. I want you to elaborate on the concept of influence, because it's by being natural to be influential, or to create, or there's benefits that come with natural influence, right? There are benefits to come with that. And I think most of us as men, it's natural for us to step in roles of understanding the power and the options and the influence and expansion that come with influence. So I think the question is how do you find the morals, the correct moral compass, as an individual who is experiencing natural influence, regardless of where it comes from, because chasing influence is natural. But if we fall into religion, we say, well, it's natural to be influential, but you got to be influential in the Christian way. So when we're talking about the things that clash in society, what clash in society to me is the natural instinct of influence up against someone else's natural instinct of influence, regardless of what their moral codes are. And
the one well-known leader, expert in leadership, says leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. I think there's a great amount of truth in that. I don't think it's exhaustive. I just think that there's true. The truth is you can have good influence or bad influence. So influence is the way we lead. The question is, where is that leadership coming from? What is the motive of that leadership? So motive is everything, right? So motive is, I can use my influence to enhance. In fact, what I use, another definition that a way of framing up leadership for me is, how do I use my influence to benefit humanity, to platform humanity, to expose humanity? Okay. So I'm coming under humanity to uplift humanity, not trying to stand atop of humanity to be me. So leadership has an influence or responsibility to uplift humanity.
So I was just going to say, I agree with that. I think one of the ways that I've said it is that our responsibility of leader is a leader. And it doesn't matter whether it's in business or it's in our home. It's the responsibility is the same. It's to elevate, not dominate. That is our responsibility. That is the responsibility of a leader, is to lift up those around them as opposed to standing on them to push them down. And I think that's so important to look at that. And so I think the other issue is this. When you talk about influence, everybody has influence. I'm in Denver right now, and I am teaching at a leadership academy. I have kids from 8th through 12th grade. And so I was talking to them today about leadership. That's what I'm doing all day long. That's what my voice is out a little bit. From 9:30 to 3:30, I'm talking to kids about leadership. And as I was talking to them today, I said, you need to know that you're a leader, but you also need to know how do you lead and where do you lead? How do you use your influence? And I asked them the question, I said, was Adolf Hitler a good leader? And almost all of the kids said no. And one boy said, yeah, he was a good leader. He handled his business. He did exactly what he said he wanted to do. He said he was a jacked up person, but he was a good leader. And that's absolutely true. Leadership in and of itself is just simply having the influence to be able to move other people. The question is, how are you moving them, and where are you moving them to, and what are you using to move them? And so I think that, again, to keep this in the context of leadership within the home and male leadership within the home, the question is, what is governing how we lead? What is the basis for how we lead? And so if the issue is, I want reverence, then what's going to happen? If I want reverence, then I'm going to try to dominate you, and I'm going to make you treat me in a different way. If I want to reign and to dominate, then I'm going to force you by power to listen to what I'm saying. Does that make sense? So I just think that there has to be, Kelvin talked about alignment, and I think that the only way, when we talk about male leadership within the home, we're obviously talking about coming from a Christian mindset, and why people misunderstand that. But when we understand how God calls us to lead as men, He calls us to lead by saying Christ is the example. Now, that is the example of how you're supposed to lead. So how do you lead? You lead sacrificially. You lead love. You lead with love. You lead with care of others. You lead putting others first, right? Mm-hmm. If we lead that way, that's very different than leading from a standpoint of I am demanding reverence or I am seeking domination. So that is how that leadership is governed.
Well, isn't it natural? Self-preservation is natural, right? That's
absolutely, absolutely.
Right? So self-preservation, how do we say it's either strong leadership or because if you're not self-preserving, if you're not expanding in self-preservation, are you a good leader or not? See, if you're not expanding your influence.
Well, here's the deal, and I don't want to go too weighty in that, but self-preservation at its root origin is governed by fear. And if we want to go to original intent, I want to be shallow here, I don't want to be too weighty, but the reality is that my phone? That's not my phone.
It's not mine. It's not mine.
Hold on.
Right here.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. That was my phone.
we knew who phone it was.
All right. So going back to what I was saying, hopefully I won't get another call.
They said, answer me. They said.
All right, hold on. Okay.
Go ahead, man. It's not really distracting me. So
okay. Yeah. So going back to what I was saying, so self-preservation actually is governed by fear. Sorry about that, everybody. It's governed by fear. And it is natural. Okay, so I'm not saying that it is not natural to take care of yourself,
but you're saying it's governed by fear.
Yeah, because see, if I go to a biblical context with that, love allows me to be without insecurity. Mm-hmm. So self-centeredness is the driving force or the underpinning of self-preservation. Now, it's a natural need within finite man. Don't get me wrong. The need to preserve oneself is important. But most of us are way out of pocket from it being in proper order. So this makes it difficult for us to serve people freely because we are fearful that someone's going to take advantage of us.
Yeah.
So when you're fearful that people will take advantage of you and you're trying to figure out people's motives, then it becomes second nature to protect yourself from being what? Taken advantage of, being dominated, being manipulated, being controlled, losing something. I have this fear of losing something. So self-preservation is a natural force that now operates. But if I'm going to be honest with you, it was never in God's intention for creation. But that's a whole nother topic of discussion.
Yeah, you know what? I think that, Rob, you're right about the issue of self-preservation is natural. It is absolutely a natural thing. Let me take care of myself. But again, if we're talking about, I think it's also important for us to establish kind of the worldview that we're on this show. As we're talking, we're not just simply talking, throwing this out in the general atmosphere of saying we're thinking about this in general. What is going to guide our thinking and our responses is a Christian worldview. So I think we just need to say that. So everything we're saying is going to be governed by a Christian worldview, which may mean that some people may go, that's why I don't agree with you. Okay, that's fine. But understand the basis of how we're speaking. I'm not speaking in generalities. Everything we're talking about is coming from the perspective of a Christian worldview. And so within the Christian worldview, self-preservation is not the highest good. In a Christian worldview, you sacrifice self in order to lift up others, right? And so as you were talking, and Rob, as you asked what came to my mind, and again, as I said, is Jesus is our example as a Christian worldview. If Jesus is our example, on the cross, and what were people yelling at Jesus? And this is what it said. He saved others, but he can't save himself. Are you the king? Come down from the cross right now and we'll believe in you. What were they appealing to? Self-preservation, right? Save yourself. Even though in saving himself, he would have hurt others. And so in a Christian worldview, we have to understand what is the value system that is driving our influence. What is the value system that is driving our decision making? What is the value system that is driving our leadership and our service within our homes? And that value system is to look and to lead as a man the way Christ lived as a man. And the way Christ lived as a man was to take care of the people around him, even if it meant self-sacrificing, in order to say, but what is best for you? It may hurt me right now, and it may go against my natural tendency for self-preservation, but it will ultimately be best for me and for those around me.
It always means self-sacrificing. So that's one of the things we learned as men. But I want to try to respond to this. Two things. Leadership. Anthony West says leadership is a learned skill. We're not born leaders. First, to respond to that, and then also you alluded to this. How would it transform relationships in our homes and in our communities? I think I want to shift to that a little bit. The bigger overall general impact of how does the focus and the way we define leadership in our manhood, how should it have an impact on our homes, and how should it transform the communities in which we live in? And I almost believe that it seems like when we say that in general, correct me if I'm wrong, when we say that in general, it's almost like we zooming in on a specific community. It don't seem as though, I don't know if other men, I don't know if we're speaking to other men in other communities. It seems like we are. Yeah, we are speaking to. That's what I want to know.
Yeah, we are across the board. Yeah, we are across the board.
It's a cultural issue.
Yeah, okay. It's not a cultural issue, but okay, when we say this sentence, who does this sentence belong to? How would it transform relationships in our homes and in our communities? So let's broaden that to the point where it remind me like when the Fab Five and Duke, Coach K used to recruit certain type of players, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the other type of players went to Michigan, and people who like Michigan didn't really like Duke. And I used to love Duke because it was like this standard that was put in place that I was hoping that Duke could show other programs what Duke was doing. You know what I mean? So it was like, it's one of those type of things when you say community to me, or manhood or leadership in community. I see leadership in other communities in a different way than I see in certain communities, right? And we just be quite honest. Is there something that could be emulated from leadership of other communities?
Yeah, Rob, let me say a couple of things.
Sure.
One, let me respond first to Anthony's response statement here about leadership. The learned skill, we're not born leaders. I get the sentiment of that statement, but I think that we're all born leaders. We're just not all born good leaders. I think good leadership is a learned skill. Effective leadership is a learned skill. But I don't care who you are. A babies lead because babies influence. When babies cry, what they doing? They influencing. They can get people to get up out of the bed at 3 o'clock in the morning when they don't want to. That's leadership. Now that seems silly, but what I'm saying is when we talk about influence, right? So you can influence somebody in any number of ways. The question is, do you develop the skill? So leadership is a natural thing. There are people who follow you. But effective leadership, godly leadership is learned. That skill is learned. I'll just state that, and then I want to come back and respond to your other question. I don't know if you want to say anything about that, PK.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I'll add one other caveat to that, or another piece to that, is that there is a such thing as called as a gift of leadership. There are some people that are gifted, and that deals with an acumen or an ability that they have that would be different than a base leader. All people are influenced. Have influence. That's why we're saying everybody leads one way or another. They need to develop that leadership. Now, even with the gift of leadership, it still has to be developed. All of these have to be developed, but it's more of a natural, instinctive flow. People that have a leadership gift think a certain way naturally. They may not have to spend as much time in these areas to develop. It's like a natural born ball player. It's not natural born, I'm sorry, natural instinctive movements, if you get what I'm trying to say. Help me with this, because I think you all get what I'm saying.
But with that, PK, let's say who is a naturally gifted, physically talented, that has the skill set, hand-eye coordination to play baseball.
Right.
Okay. Let's use maybe one of the most naturally gifted baseball players of our time, and that's Barry Bonds.
Yeah.
Barry Bonds is a naturally gifted player. Ken Griffey Jr., naturally gifted player. Mike Trout, naturally gifted player. That doesn't mean that his skill set has been developed enough in high school to play at the pro level.
That's what you're right. Thank you. So that's a picture of what I'm trying to say. All leadership has to be developed, but exactly what JP said earlier, everyone has leadership in them. Put it this way: God put everyone on planet Earth to lead self and lead in some way or another. Even in the small sphere of their life, they're called to lead.
Yep. Yeah, and so I think, again, so you know what? I have a book that I've outlined. I've taught it. I just haven't written it. But I've taught it to the Men in the Gatekeepers group. And the title of it is Adam, You Are Born to Lead. Now Learn How. That's the title.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because, yes, Adam has been placed in this leadership. Men have been, God says, I want you in this role. that doesn't mean you know what you're doing. You know, you have to learn how to most effectively operate within that role. You have to learn how to be a good husband. You got to learn how to be a good dad. You got to learn those things. Just because you're in the role doesn't mean that you got it. You know,
Right.
you learn those things. So that I think that's important. We all lead, but we have to learn how to operate effectively in a particular role to lead in an effective way.
Let's transition to one of the questions. Is the idea of male leadership an archaic idea? Well, since we have such very strong assistant helpers in our walk in leadership, I mean, very strong. So let's talk about, is the idea archaic at this point, the way males should think of leadership, with the way the strength of our women, the strength of our wives, the strength of their positioning in life, financially, in every other regard to ideologies, direction. Is the idea of male leadership archaic?
Only if God is archaic and God is no longer valuable. So if you can tell me that God's plan, and again, I'm talking from a Christian worldview, okay? So that's what I'm going to say. But no, it is not archaic. What is archaic is the improper application of that leadership. That is what is archaic. The idea that women are too fragile to lead. Women are not smart enough to carry positions. That women don't have ability, and that women their place is only for childbearing and for cooking. Those concepts, those constructs are archaic and obsolete. But the reality is that those were never the position, those never should have been the positions of even a Christian worldview. They were in some of those positions did find themselves in the church, and guess what? They were wrong then too. So they were always wrong. They were always applied improperly. So the question you have to do is peel off all of the layers and the barnacles and everything else that has been placed upon top of God's intentionality, and see, what did God intention? That is what we are looking at. This is what I think that people are rejecting. People are not rejecting the message of the Bible. They're rejecting the messiness of the messengers. And so it's the messiness of mankind, of humankind, and how we have improperly applied what God said, and we have turned it into something that God never intended. And our people are rejecting that, and they think they're rejecting what God has said, and they're not. They're rejecting the messiness that we have created.
So you're saying leadership don't mean absolute domination, authority, or superiority? Is that what you're saying?
Yup. Yeah.
But I want y'all to frame the picture of what a man needs to do. Today's man, what do they need to do in order to know how to navigate as a leader, or know how to, guide their family as a leader with the current conditions of the day, when there's so many things, there's in position to knock them out of position in whatever ideology they have about leadership.
Well, the first thing that has to happen with all human beings, but we're going to deal with the male seed first. The first thing that has to happen is that we must become healthy. The statement of self-preservation, if I line it up biblically in a restorative context, if I'm on a plane and the plane's going down, before I can help anybody else, I got to help myself. I got to put the oxygen over my own face before I can help anyone. Jay hit it right on the head. I was getting ready to say it right after he he got in my mind and just spit it out. So we got the same wording, and that is people are rejecting a wrong message or wrong behavior, and therefore God gets the blame.
Yep.
But anything that came from God, anything that originally comes from its right source, no one will want to reject because it will do nothing but bless them.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're going to say DNA, the DNA of true leadership will do nothing but bless humanity.
Yep.
So the first thing that has to happen to the male man is he must become healthy. He must start on the road to being a whole man himself, meaning he's got to be able to eradicate a lot of the internal fears that are stopping him from embracing himself. I am not to be in competition with another man. My competition in that energy should be going toward a different area. But instead of us looking to each other to complete us, in other words, to assist us in developing, we compete against each other. That's a sign of an unhealthy male mentality. It's unhealthy with women as well, but I must pursue health. The scripture says, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, mind, soul, and strength. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as you do yourself. So within that triangle is the love of God, the love of people, and the love of myself. So what we aren't saying when we talked about self-preservation is that there should be no love for self. We're not saying that. That is not true. There should be a healthy love that basically mirrors God's love and affection for humanity. So we think well of ourselves, but within the context of being a created son of the living God. So I've got to start with getting healthy within my own thinking process about myself in life. That's where it begins. Because see, if I'm infectious, if I'm infected, if I'm diseased, I'm not going to do anything but take that influence and spread it throughout society, starting with my home. So my first way back is to find health.
I don't know if y'all want to go too deep on this subject, but I at least want to throw something out there so we can systematically unpack it throughout the process of our conversations. Go ahead.
Hold on. Before, I don't want you to change. Before you change gears a little bit,
Okay.
I want to jump in with your question. I think also you asked a question before we didn't get to it as well about community and transformation.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose sight of that, right? But to answer your question, is I think about again today in class, and I'm talking to my senior group, and they are sitting in the room and they're having this discussion before class started, and they start talking about these battles that they've had over the years, the last 3 or 4 years, especially about who's better, men or women. And they would have, so these are 17-year-olds having these battles already. And I said, okay, let's deal with this. And I said, we're going to talk about this later in the class because the class is talking about relationships. But I said to them, I want you all to shift the narrative right now. Because what is the narrative in the larger community right now is that it is battle. It's battleground Galactica between men and women. And it's like everything is all the time, right? No matter what you say, it's like you being misogynist, you being, this, or you being that, and you toxic, and all of these things, where it's this constant battle about who's better, who's right, who's worth, those type of things. And I challenge them with this. And I challenge anybody when I do a wedding, every single wedding, I say the same thing to every couple. I said, I want you to remember that this person that you standing here looking at with googly eyes right now, I want you to remember who they are. They are not a conspirator. They are not there to undermine your goals and your dreams. They are not a competitor. They are not there for somebody to beat. They are a complement. They are there to work together with you to achieve the goals and the things that you're supposed to be doing together. And what I said to these young people today was that I want you all to shift the narrative right now, to break the cycle right now, and to learn how to respect one another, to love one another, not in a lustful, lusty, kind of way, but right now to be able to say, what do I need to do to help you be the best person you can be? That's the guiding force right there. Do I love you? And love is an act of the will, not just, an emotion. And so I think that is important, that, again, if we're talking about respect one another, love one another, it should be the guiding force of how we treat one another. And that will begin to transform. And if I could use that to segue into your other question, if we begin to love one another, does that not transform how we behave? If instead of we're looking at everybody as a conspirator, so we don't trust them, or as a competitor, we got to beat them. If we love them, we serve them. That transforms families. That's transforms communities. That transforms churches and businesses. This is not just, how we operate within the church. If I am leading a business, if I am serving my employees, if I'm serving my employees and I'm loving them and I'm putting them in a position to succeed, will not my business succeed if my employees succeed? You see, that's transformational. If I am trying to put my wife in a position to succeed, rather than, and she knows that, as opposed to wondering if I see her as a conspirator or as a competitor, where I don't trust her or I have to beat her. She's a competitor I have to beat. If she is fully convinced that everything that is flowing from me is flowing from a desire to love her, to put her in the best possible position to succeed, will that not transform marriages and homes? That's what transforms communities. And that's how we get beyond this toxicity and get to a real healthy community.
How did we get here? How did we get here to the point where, just to say about the comments, can y'all hear that background noise?
It's just cars.
It's a lot more. It's a lot more. Hey, but how did we get here to the point where men and women are like in the back of an empty truck, and the truck is headed straight for the wall, and we in the back of the truck arguing about where we gonna sit? How did we get here?
Well, simply put, by bad examples. Okay, let's God in his unique genius, that's not good. God is far above a genius, but God in his wisdom. I just listened to that lawnmower.
Oh, you can hear when you're talking, huh?
Yeah. God in his wisdom really designed the family unit as the highest institution to train respect, honor, reverence, relationship, love. And when you don't get it from there, you are twisted everywhere. So that's why the entire attack from our conception, from the time mankind started, was to attack that relationship between Adam and Eve, cause it to be dysfunctional. And then there's dysfunction, of course, in the children. And when that plays out like that, because that's your greatest example, we grow up with a whole lot of dysfunctionality, and it perpetuates itself.
Mm-hmm. Would you said, I love what you just said. I was trying to write it down. See if you can repeat it. I'm gonna try to repeat it. You tell me where I'm missing it. You said God in his wisdom designed the family to be the training ground for
respect,
love,
honor,
yeah,
dignity, care, love, all of that was supposed to be incubated in that incubator of the family. And people don't understand. So I'll just give an example. You'll have, and I've had people get angry with me with this. You have some children that call their parents by their first name. And I, with wisdom and love, try to break that when I have people doing that. And people have said to me, well, you just saying that. If the parent doesn't have a problem with it and they don't have a problem, why do you have a problem with it? And so, you know, you have to manage. I had to manage to keep my frustration down from that type of thought process. But here's the truth. If I don't honor my parents, I won't honor the police officer in the street. I won't honor my teacher. If Robert comes up to me and Robert's 30 years my senior and he says something to me, I won't have any regard for him, because honor starts in that relationship between the father and the son, the mother and the child. So we want to redefine stuff. And the scripture says there's a way that seems right, but the end thereof is destruction. What it's basically saying, there are seeds you sow that you think are right, but they come up with a bad crop. So you can't get out of that. And it's modeled, it's demonstrated, it's taught. Some things are taught, many things are caught.
Yeah, man. You know what? If I would just say one other thing about that, I'm trying to draw up something real fast that I can share. But just something that you said there, PK, that I think is so critical that we miss. This issue of respect. There are 4 realms. Okay, at the heart of it is the personal realm. I got to respect myself. I got to learn how to respect myself, right? That's the personal realm. But then there's the other realm, the realm that self is seen within another context of the family realm. And if I don't, so now as I learn to respect myself and my own value, then I go into that family realm. I learn how to respect authority within the family realm. I learn how to submit to parents. I learn how to submit and to live in community with brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and other people within that family realm. We learn how to operate together and in mutual respect and service to one another, right? Then when I learn how to operate within the personal realm and within the family realm, I'm now fit to go into the community realm.
Yeah.
And now when I go into that community realm and begin to operate there, now I know how to respect authority within the community. I know how to respect authority within the school. I know how to respect authority within the workplace, on my job. And now all of that is submissive to the 4th realm, which is the spiritual realm. So all of those other realms, learning to respect self, to respect parents, is teaching us how to respect the community, which is in turn then teaching us how we live in submission to God within the spiritual realm. So that's why what you said is so important about the family being the training ground,
yeah,
for all of those realms. It really is the training ground.
Absolutely. And without it, we have major dysfunction. You know, you hear people say also stuff like in the church, there's redefinitions on this too, or realignment where they say, well, I don't follow a man. I don't need a man to follow. Well, that's just not true. You don't worship a man, but all through scripture, God says, be an example. Why? Because he understood that behavior transfers.
Yep.
And so this ideal of not being an example because we don't need man, just follow the Bible is is ludicrous because there's nothing in life that functions that way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We all listen. We all follow some. What's that old song? I know I'm dating myself, but it was old song. You may serve the devil, you may serve the Lord, but you gonna serve somebody. You gonna serve somebody.
Yeah.
You know. So,
there ain't no neutral ground for that.
Yeah, there ain't no neutral ground. Yeah.
I want to throw out a few names. I want to throw out a few names. I want to see how y'all respond to them in regards of the impact or the influence that you think that they have on society. I'm going to throw a few names out. Donald Trump.
Depending on your background and spectrum, for businessmen that are hungry to lead at high levels, they see him as a hero. For many in the Black community, they see him as incompetent. It just depends on where your frame is.
Yep. And depends on what worldview you operating in and what your goals are.
Yep.
President Obama.
Same thing.
Yep. You can look at him as a dignitary, as a dignified gentleman. If you look at him, not looking at necessarily whether you agree with his politics, but as far as the way he operated for 4 years, he was a gentleman. He was presidential. Any man that takes that away is blind in some bias. They have some bias, and there are people that have bias, but he walked in a degree of honor in that office. And he's a pretty smart guy.
Yeah.
You got something on it? Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Jesse Jackson, Sr.
Okay, go back. What's the original? What's the question again?
What type of when I say these names, what type of impact do you think they have as far as influence on our society, influence, or just in general influence? When you hear their name, what type of impact do they have, positive or negative, however you see it? I just was curious to know what the gauge was for these type of people that are steeped in positions to have influence in our society.
I think at one point Jackson was more influential than he is now. That influence has waned. I think at one point he had much more influence than he does now. So right now, I don't really think that he's should be respected, but I don't think that he is one that wields any level of real influence. Maybe symbolic, but I don't think that, if Jesse Jackson shows up at your event, it's really more symbolic. I'm not sure if anybody is like, oh man, we need to hear from him. But that doesn't diminish any level of respect we have for him in the past.
Caitlyn Jenner.
Please. Influential, yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Kate. Go ahead, PK.
Definitely influence, but it would be amongst the transgender segment of society.
Ellen DeGeneres.
What?
Just these are popular people, so I'm just curious to know the impact that you guys think that they have on society.
First of all, Ellen is incredibly gifted. I mean, she's good at what she does.
Yeah, she's very witty, smart.
I'm gonna tell you what Ellen DeGeneres did. Ellen DeGeneres became a voice and a face for LGBTQ mainstream acceptance. She was very influential in that standpoint, because she's funny. And it's really hard to reject anything that's funny, because you laugh, right? Yeah. And so let me go way back again. I'm going to show my gray hair. Y'all remember, and I can't think of the name of the show right now, but Billy Crystal. It was Billy Crystal's first soap.
Oh,
That
soap. Yeah. Soap.
he was the first openly gay character on TV. But
I
he was
forgot about that show.
right. And when you laugh at something, it is very difficult to be. It's like it becomes acceptable, and that started that. And again, I don't listen. I don't hate nobody. I really don't. But what I'm simply saying, in terms of acceptance, people like that, like Crystal, like Ellen DeGeneres, has brought that to a mainstream level of acceptance. There's no big deal. But yeah, so in terms of influence, that's her influence, in my opinion.
Oprah Winfrey.
Once again, a master at her craft. Strong influence, brings a lot of people to the table. I think she's done a great job of exposing talent across the globe. Whether you're biased on what she has used her platform for, I think for the most part, she's done a great job of showing the diverse flexibility in humanity. And that's been a very good thing in some ways. There's some other areas that maybe her influence is not very good.
But she's definitely influential. And she's used her platform in some very positive ways.
Absolutely.
I may not agree with, but it's her platform.
Right.
Yeah.
Jay-Z and Beyonce.
Jay-Z, he is an incredible, hope-filled African-American leader that was on the street doing some things by the mere fact of survival, took his gift, stewarded that gift, but beyond that, he became a business mogul. He has built something beyond just rap music. So he's a businessman. He is a legitimate businessman.
You mean
his wife?
You mean not a businessman? I'm a businessman.
Lord, today.
But you know what? They both of them are cultural influencers at the highest level.
Absolutely.
At the highest
level. It should be illegal for two billionaires to get married, man. Come on, you gotta spread that around, man. You know,
well,
you gotta spread that around, man.
Well, the truth of the matter is when they were married, they weren't billionaires.
Yeah, I know. I'm just talking.
Yeah, but yeah.
Last one, Kirk Franklin.
Total influence in gospel music. He is highly responsible for shifting the genre somewhat.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember years ago, I had a friend of mine who, Kirk Franklin is from Texas. I had a youth friend of mine that's from Texas. And he said Kirk Franklin almost cost him his job. He said, because he brought Kirk Franklin to his church when Kirk Franklin was just starting. He was really young and just doing it. And he came in there talking about, Kirk Franklin was totally being Kirk. He said his pastor was about ready to fire him. Who is this fool you done brought up?
He was definitely different. I mean, he brought different.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm gonna tell you something. You go all the way back to Thomas Dorsey in the early 1900s. If you go all the way back to Tommy Dorsey in the early 1900s, there you go. Folks rejected Tommy Dorsey because he was bringing that worldly bar music into the church.
Right.
But look how it reshaped gospel music, right? Andre Crouch did the same thing. Yeah. And then Kirk did the same thing. So Kirk is an influencer And I think for the most part, I think he's done a very positive thing. We all have warts, but I think for the most part, he's been very positive. But he has definitely been an influencer. Whether you like his music or not, he has definitely influenced the gospel music.
Plug yourselves.
All right. Jason Perry. Follow me on Facebook. Hey, I teach on Sunday mornings. Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Spiritual Formation with Pastor Jason. Love to have you come on and be a part of what we do. Right now, we're teaching about spiritual disciplines.
Kelvin Easter, responsible for the oversight of Destiny to Win Christian Center, Transform Men. You can look me up, Kelvin Easter, or look up Destiny to Win and follow us, or follow me on YouTube.
And as always, you can catch us on Collective Perspective, or you can catch me on Jaw Jacking on YouTube. I got 2 channels. Subscribe to them, share them, like them. Different content from different audiences. What we do, collecting, networking people together all over the world is what my heart intends to do. Spreading utopia with good heart, hoping to make the world a better place. Thank y'all for tuning in. The Man Up, my man JP, my man PK. Deuces.
Love you all.